Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I hope you all had a good day and are ready to listen to some stories to wind down and fall asleep to. Before the video begins, please drop a like and subscribe if you aren't already, it really helps the channel and I would really appreciate it. Comment below where you are watching this video from, I would love to know. Alright, turn off the lights and get ready for some horror stories. So, my first day of high school was the scariest day of my life, and not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't nerves, or getting lost, or anything like that. Something actually happened. I had first period English, and the teacher was one of those strict ones who tells you right off the bat that she doesn't tolerate phones or whispering. Everyone was quiet. About 10 minutes in, I noticed the guy sitting diagonally behind me just staring. Not at the board, not at the teacher, just at me. At first, I figured maybe I had something on my shirt, or he spaced out in my direction. But it didn't stop. He kept his head turned, eyes locked on me, like he wasn't even blinking. I shifted in my seat, pretended to scratch my neck, glanced back quick. Yeah, he was still looking. You ever get that feeling where your whole body knows something's off? That's what it was like. I tried to focus on the teacher, but the hairs on the back of my neck were standing straight up. After class, I walked out fast. He followed. Not like just walking in the same direction, he was keeping pace right behind me. I slowed down to tie my shoe, and he slowed down. I sped up, he sped up. I thought, okay, maybe he's just going to the same place. But then I cut into the bathroom. He came in right after. I walked to the sink and pretended to wash my hands, even though they were dry. He just leaned against the wall by the stalls and stared at me in the mirror. Didn't say a word. I couldn't even look at him straight on, just through the reflection. The silence was heavy, like he was waiting for me to react. Finally, I just grabbed my bag and left, heart pounding. I skipped second period entirely and hid in the library. I thought maybe I was overreacting, maybe he was just a weird kid. But at lunch, he sat at the table right across from mine, alone, still watching me. Not eating, not talking. Just watching. That was the longest day of my life. By the time I got home, I didn't even tell my parents because I didn't know how to explain it without sounding paranoid. The next day, I avoided him as much as I could, but every time I turned around in the halls, he was there. You know what's worse? He never said a single word to me. Not once. No hi, no introduction, nothing. Just silence and staring. That was years ago, but I still remember that first day like it was yesterday. You know how everyone makes a big deal out of the first day of school? New clothes, new teachers, new people. For me, it turned into the creepiest day I can remember. So, I was starting at a new school, moved over the summer, didn't know a single person. I was already nervous, but I tried to play it cool. When I got there, the hallways were packed, everyone knew where to go, and I was basically hugging my schedule like a lifeline. My first class was history, and it was fine, normal. But when the bell rang and I was trying to find my way to second period, this guy bumped into me. Not like an accidental shoulder brush, he slammed right into me. My stuff went flying, and I said, "Hey, watch it." He just stood there, didn't help me pick anything up. He looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Don't ever talk to me again." Then he walked off. I just stood there in the middle of the hall with my books all over the floor, trying to process what just happened. Nobody else seemed to notice. Second period, guess who's in the class? Same guy. He didn't look at me once, didn't acknowledge me, but I could feel it. You know that feeling like someone's waiting for you to mess up? That was it. By lunch, I was starving and just wanted to sit down. I picked a random table since I didn't know anyone. Halfway through eating, I realized he was sitting 2 tables away, completely turned in his chair, just staring at me. No food, no tray, nothing. Just sitting there, watching. I lost my appetite real quick. Last period of the day, I'm finally thinking, okay, just get through this, go home, no big deal. The teacher hands out these little index cards so we can write our names and a fun fact about ourselves. I finish mine, hand it forward. A few minutes later, I see my card again, except there's handwriting on the back in black marker that wasn't mine. 4 words, I know where you live. My heart just dropped. I looked around, trying to figure out who wrote it. Nobody was looking at me. And when the bell rang, I shoved the card in my bag and got the hell out of there. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept thinking about how he knew my name, how he might have seen my address on a school form, I don't know. The scariest part? He never said another word to me after that. But I still saw him, always nearby, always watching. That was my first day at that school. Okay, so, my first day of sophomore year was hands down the worst day I've ever had at school, and I've never really told anyone the whole story. It wasn't like a bad test or forgetting my locker combo, it was something that still makes me double-check doors and windows at night. That morning I was already running late. My bus stops at the corner, and when I got there, I noticed this car parked across the street. A beat-up gray sedan, windows down even though it was hot out. There was a guy sitting in it, just kind of slouched low, smoking. I thought maybe he was a parent waiting for their kid, but it was weird because the bus stops in a dead spot, no houses right there, just a patch of woods. I didn't think much of it, though. When we got to school, I saw the same car in the student parking lot. Now that was strange, because students can't even park there without a pass, and this car definitely wasn't from any kid I knew. I brushed it off and went inside. First period was fine. But after that, between classes, I realized the guy from the car was in the hallway. I swear to you, grown man, not a student. He was leaning against a wall, holding a clipboard like he belonged there. No visitor badge, nothing. And when I passed him, he turned his head and followed me with his eyes. By third period, I couldn't shake the feeling. Every time I left a classroom, I'd see him. Sometimes at the end of the hall, sometimes in the stairwell, sometimes outside looking through a window. Always close enough that I knew he was tracking me, but not so close that I could catch him doing anything wrong. Lunch was the breaking point. I sat down with a couple kids I kind of knew, trying to look like I wasn't freaking out. Then I spotted him again. He was standing in the doorway to the cafeteria, pretending to check something on his clipboard. But he wasn't checking anything, he was staring at me. Staring so long that one of my friends noticed and said, "Yo, do you know that guy?" I shook my head. After lunch, I ducked into the bathroom just to breathe for a second, and when I came out, he was right there leaning on the lockers. Like, directly across from the door. He smiled this quick, tight smile and said, "How's your first day going?" That was the only thing he ever said to me. Just that. I didn't answer, I just bolted to class. Final period, I couldn't focus at all. My knee was bouncing the whole time, waiting for the bell. When it finally rang, I booked it straight to my bus. But here's the part that still scares me the most. When I got on, the gray sedan was parked right across the street from the buses. I sat down by the window, and I could see him in the driver's seat, smoking again, just watching the buses pull out. When I got home, I ran inside and told my mom everything. She called the school, and they brushed it off at first, said it was probably a maintenance worker or a substitute teacher I didn't recognize. But the next day, an email went out to all the parents saying someone had been spotted on school grounds without authorization. They never found out who he was, or how he got inside. That was my first day of school. And the whole year after that, I couldn't shake the feeling that every time I walked out of the building, he might be sitting in that same car, waiting. So, my first day of freshman year was honestly one of the scariest days of my life. Not like haunted house scary, but the kind of scary where you're thinking, this could have gone really bad if I wasn't careful. I don't usually talk about it because it sounds like one of those overdramatic stories, but it really happened. That morning, my mom dropped me off since she wanted to take pictures and all that first day of high school stuff. I remember rolling my eyes and telling her I'd just take the bus like a normal kid, but she insisted. Anyway, we pulled into the loop out front, and right away I noticed this guy sitting on the curb near the entrance. Older, maybe late 20s or early 30s. Hoodie pulled up even though it was already hot out, backpack sitting beside him. I thought maybe he was an older brother waiting on someone, or even a teacher's aide or something, but the way he was sitting there, it was off. Not looking at a phone, not talking to anyone, just staring at the stream of kids walking in. I went inside, got my schedule, and found my locker. Normal first day chaos, freshmen bumping into each other, upperclassmen acting like they owned the place. First period went by fine. The teacher did the whole, let's go around and introduce ourselves, thing. I was nervous, but nothing crazy happened. Second period, though, is where I started noticing him again. My classroom had those little square windows in the door, and about halfway through, I glanced up while the teacher was talking. He was there. The same guy from outside. Standing in the hall, angled like he was trying not to be obvious, but his eyes were right on me. When I blinked, he walked away. I thought I was imagining it at first. Like, maybe I just saw someone who looked like him. But then, after the bell rang and everyone poured out into the hall, he was at the far end, leaning against the lockers. Same hoodie, same backpack. He didn't look at anyone else, just me as I passed. By third period, my stomach was in knots. I kept telling myself, it's fine, maybe he's someone's brother, maybe he has a reason to be here. But you ever just know when someone's watching you for the wrong reasons? It was that. Lunchtime made it worse. I was trying to figure out where to sit when I spotted him again, this time actually inside the cafeteria. He didn't have a tray, didn't sit down, didn't talk to anyone. He just stood by the vending machines with his hood halfway up, scanning the tables until his eyes landed on me. He held it for a good 30 seconds. Long enough that I froze with my tray in my hands, pretending to look for somewhere to sit, when really I was panicking inside. I ended up sitting with this group of kids I barely knew, just to blend in. But the whole time, I couldn't eat. I kept glancing at the vending machines. He never left. Just kept that same distance, like he didn't care if I noticed him. After lunch, I ducked into the bathroom to splash water on my face, and when I came out, he was right there. Leaning on the lockers across from the door, like he knew I'd come out at that exact second. He smiled, this small, tight smile, and said, "You get nervous real easy, don't you?" I froze. My brain went blank. I didn't even answer, I just pushed past him and speed-walked to class. By seventh period, I was completely on edge. I barely heard anything the teachers said all day. My leg was bouncing, hands sweaty, just waiting for the bell. When it finally rang, I went straight to the bus lot, not stopping for anyone. And that's when I saw it, the same guy, sitting in that same hoodie, now behind the wheel of a black Honda Civic parked at the edge of the lot. His window was rolled down, and he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, just watching kids pile onto buses. I tried not to look at him, but I couldn't help it. I glanced back once as I climbed on. His eyes were locked on me, following me until I sat down. I ducked low in my seat, heart pounding, and the whole ride home I kept expecting to see that car following the bus. When I got home, I finally told my mom everything. At first, she thought I was exaggerating, but when I described him, she got real quiet. She called the school, and later that night, we got an email from the principal saying someone had been spotted loitering on campus without clearance. They claimed security escorted him off the property, but they didn't say who he was or why he was there. That was my first day of high school. And honestly, every morning after that, I scanned the parking lot, half expecting to see that Civic again. I never did, but to this day, whenever I'm in a crowded place and I spot someone watching me just a little too long, it all comes rushing back. So, my first day of senior year is burned into my brain, and not for the reasons it should have been. You'd think it'd be about parking in the senior lot for the first time, or finally not feeling like the little kid anymore. But nah, it turned into something I'll probably never forget. That morning, I actually felt pretty good. I had my license, drove myself, even stopped for coffee. I pulled into the lot around 7:20, early enough to grab a decent spot. I noticed this guy standing by the fence near the edge of the lot. Not a student, he looked way older, maybe mid-30s, scruffy beard, baseball cap pulled down low. At first, I figured maybe he was a groundskeeper or someone fixing the fence. He had his hands in his hoodie pocket and was just kind of pacing. I didn't think much about it until I realized he wasn't pacing the fence, he was pacing with me. When I got out of my car and started walking toward the building, he started moving along the fence line, like he was keeping pace with me but outside the boundary. I brushed it off, told myself I was being paranoid. First period was math. Normal, boring introductions. I thought maybe I'd just imagined the whole thing. But when the bell rang and I walked into the hall, I froze. Through the little window in the exit door, I could see him, same guy, leaning against the fence again, watching kids stream past. And I swear, even though there were like 100 people moving around, he was looking directly at me. By third period, I started really paying attention. Every time I passed a window, I'd glance outside. And more than once, I caught him in different spots, by the bleachers, by the football field, sitting on the curb. Always outside, but always positioned so he had a view into the school. Lunchtime came, and I headed to the cafeteria. My friend group grabbed a table near the windows. Bad move. I was halfway through unwrapping a sandwich when one of my buddies said, "Yo, who's that creep staring in?" I turned, and there he was, standing just outside the glass, face pressed a little too close, watching the tables. When his eyes landed on me, he didn't look away. It freaked me out so much I didn't even eat. I dumped my tray and told my friends I wasn't feeling hungry. Nobody followed me, which honestly I was glad for, because I didn't want to explain how shaken I was. After lunch, I went into the bathroom to kill time before class. When I came out, he was in the hallway. Not outside. Inside. He didn't have a badge, didn't look like staff, just standing there near the drinking fountain with his hood pulled up. I froze mid-step, heart hammering. He looked right at me and said, calm as ever, "Don't rush off. I just want to talk." I didn't say anything. I turned and walked fast the other way. I heard his footsteps behind me at first, but then they stopped. I ducked into my classroom and shut the door, too freaked out to tell the teacher what just happened. By the last period of the day, I was basically counting the minutes. I sat in the back corner, trying to keep my head down. The class ended, and I rushed to my car, thinking maybe I'd be in the clear. But as soon as I got into the lot, I spotted him again, this time leaning on a car that wasn't mine, but just a few spots away. He straightened up when he saw me, took a step like he was about to say something. I didn't give him the chance. I unlocked my car so fast I almost dropped my keys, jumped in, and floored it out of there. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the middle of the lot, just watching me drive away. That night, my mom got an email from the school. They said there had been a suspicious individual on campus, and security had called the police, but by the time they got there, he was gone. They never identified him, never said how he got inside during the day, never explained why nobody stopped him earlier. And here's the part that still gets me. About a week later, I was driving home from practice, and I swear I saw the same guy walking along the road a block from my house. Hoodie up, same pace, same build. I didn't slow down to check, I just drove straight home and locked the doors. That was my first day of senior year. It was supposed to be a milestone, you know? But all I remember is that guy's eyes on me, everywhere I went.